You know the factors that you should consider while determining the quality and value proposition of carbon credits. Now, let us look at the common pitfalls that you need to avoid while investing in offsets. In this video, you will learn about the common pitfalls which you need to avoid while investing in offsets. To begin with, you must avoid offsets that fail to address the material aspects. By material aspects, it means that while deciding on your offset strategy, you should first focus on offsetting the most important category of your emissions. Therefore, companies should first focus on offsetting the categories with the highest emissions found in their value chains. For example, in the case of a thermal power plant, 90% of emissions come from burning the fuel and therefore would be categorized as Scope 1. While emissions from business travel using cabs and airplanes will come under Scope 3 for them. Scope 3 emissions, in this case, will not be perceived as a problem by the public. Hence, thermal power plants should focus on offsetting Scope 1 emissions rather than Scope 3 emissions. Secondly, do not over-rely on offsets. Offsetting is meant only for residual emissions, that is, for 5 to 10% of emissions that you cannot avoid. It cannot become the core aspect of your strategy where you're trying to offset 40 to 50% of your emissions. Instead of communicating climate leadership through offsets, your focus should be on sufficiently reducing actual emissions. Next, you should avoid the under-diversification of projects. The credibility of some offsets will change over time due to the evolving regulatory space. It is recommended that you focus on diversifying offset providers, projects, and types while building your offset portfolio. The other pitfall to avoid is saving costs by investing in substandard projects. These projects have lower credibility and may not be accepted in the future. Investing in cheaper offsetting projects with lower validation standards may also incur the risk of public backlash. Fifthly, avoid focusing on non-eligible initiatives. A project needs to meet specific guidelines to be eligible or validated as a carbon credit generating project. For example, if you are building a port that requires you to plant 100 acres of forest as a regulatory environmental clearance, then planting just 100 acres of forest will not make your project eligible to generate carbon credits. You are anyways required to do so to get the environment clearance, and hence, you do not meet the additionality guideline. Finally, do not overcommit to certain offsets. Many forward-looking offsetting commitments at present could carry significant future cost risks, such as the likelihood of prices rising sharply. So, if you have over-reliance on offsetting as a strategy and you have made commitments around offsets, then the cost of that may become prohibitive in the future. So, you should try and avoid that strategy. To conclude, you have learned about the common pitfalls that you should avoid while investing in offsets. First, avoid the offsets that fail to address the material aspects. Second, avoid over-reliance on offsets and focus on reducing actual emissions. Third, avoid under-diversification of projects. That is, focus on diversifying offset projects or types while building offset portfolios. Fourth, avoid saving costs with substandard projects that may not be accepted in the future. Fifth, avoid focusing on non-eligible initiatives. That is, the projects should meet specific guidelines to be validated as carbon credit generating projects. Sixth, avoid overcommitment to offsets that could carry significant future cost risk. Next, you will learn about the advantages and disadvantages of buying and making offsetting projects.